Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome back to the JoshCast, the podcast that is still alive, believe it or not. This, I believe, is episode 15? Yeah, I think it's episode 15. Anyways, real quick, before I get into the whole March Madness thing, I just wanted to go over a few updates with the channel stuff and kind of hint at what's coming, just because it's that time of the month again. And first, there was no podcast last week. That was because I spent a large chunk of the weekend working on A Taste of Nostalgia series for Pokemon Silver version. If you haven't watched that video already, please do. I am actually really proud of how well that video turned out. And that video took so long to edit. It took most of the weekend to edit. I spent, I believe, 10 hours editing it. And then I spent another 2 hours on voiceover. I know what you're thinking, it's only 39 minutes. How did you spend 2 hours on voiceover? And, well, that's just because I didn't get the whole video first take. I didn't do the whole video in one, take and then just restart until I can do it start to finish without any issue. I broke it up into sections, as I always do it. Or how I did it for Donkey Kong 64, and I did it the same way for Silver, because running through a 40-minute long script, and the script itself was 23 pages, I think it was, of script. But yeah, running through all of it start to finish in one go without making any errors is impossible for me. I'm sure other people could do it, but for me, that's not going to happen. So I had to break it up into sections and then record the voiceover by section and then edit that in also into the footage that was already edited for the series. So yeah, I spent probably 12 hours working on that 39-minute video, and I actually learned a few new editing tricks in it that I just kind of experimented in that video. If you watch hard enough on it, you can probably notice where the editing style changes at one point, because I tested something out on a failed take and a extra clip that I decided to cut, and I was like, this actually looks nice. I actually really like this. So I ended up implementing it later on in the actual episode, and it all just started just because I needed to take a break from it. I just started playing around with the effects and whatnot. So I learned something. It's not too big of a difference, but if you look hard enough, you will probably see it. But yeah, after the episode was finished and it was being uploaded, I was just exhausted, and I didn't really have it in me to sit down and record a podcast and then edit that. It was mostly just because I didn't feel like editing anymore. I was so burnt out on editing that one video that I didn't really have it in me to edit a podcast, let alone do more talking. I was exhausted. I was done. So that's why there wasn't a podcast last week, but you did get a video anyway. And unfortunately for me, YouTube just is not showing it to anybody. I was really proud of it. It turned out really well. And it only has been shown to, 20 people? It only has 20 impressions? Yeah, 25 impressions. Yeah, it's not getting shown to anybody. But it has 5 views, though. So it's doing really well when it's being shown to people, but it's just not getting shown. But it's whatever. So one thing that I always kind of like to do, actually not like to do, but something that I did at the end of the first episode of Taste of Nostalgia in a podcast is I kind of teased what the next episode was going to be. I believe I said for Pokemon Silver that it was going to be a Game Boy game. That was the hint, which is actually a pretty terrible hint for what's next for the Taste of Nostalgia series. I'm still really enjoying the series. So, yeah, I'm going to tease the third episode, which isn't in filming yet. I haven't started recording it yet. The video is in pre-production right now. I'm actually doing a pre-production on it. And the reason for that is, the hint for this game is that it is not a game with a story. It is a sandbox game. That's your That's your hint. It's a sandbox game. And because there isn't really a story to it or like a main objective to it, I can't really have a set start and finish already in line for me to base the script around. So I have to kind of plan it, and I don't know how to word this. I guess what I'm trying to say is because it doesn't have a set beginning and end in a story that I can, I guess, follow through and base a script around, I have to plan out what I want to do in the episode to kind of relive it, I guess, and to base the script around. Not so much like I'm trying to write a story within the game and then tell that story through the episode. It's just going to be kind of like a condensed playthrough of some kind. And then that will be the Taste of Nostalgia video that I'll voice over and base the script on. But I just need to plan like what I want to do in the game. Like what is like the objective? What do I want to try to accomplish? What's it going to play out? Kind of like, I'm not going to like try to script the whole thing so I know how everything goes step by step. But I want to have a plan of kind of what I want to do. I know that's really confusing, but it's your hint of what the next game I'm covering is that it's essentially kind of a sandbox game, and it doesn't have a story. So that's why it's spending a little time in pre-production so I can kind of plan it out instead of just recording it and winging it and hoping that I get good footage. Because at the end of the day, I need footage to match the voiceover. Like if I write a 25-page script for a 40-minute video and I don't get 40 minutes of content, I only get like 15 minutes of content, then I didn't do a good job of recording and I just wasted my own time. And there's going to be a lot of black screen in that video, which I do not want. So I want to make sure that I properly plan everything out in a way that gives me an objective to record to and what I can base my script off, and then have enough footage to make a video out of. That's my thing right now. I just need to make sure I have enough footage. So that's your hint. The next thing that I wanted to talk about real quick is that there is potentially another playthrough coming to the channel. I have been talking a little bit with Carson about starting something. Him and I doing a playthrough of something. I'm not sure if it's going to happen just because he's busy a lot and I'm busy also. So it just kind of depends on if our schedules line up. But I might do a solo playthrough of something if that happens. I'm not sure what exactly I'll play, but I'm wanting to start another playthrough on the channel just because one of the main reasons I stopped the Fire Emblem playthrough was because I just got super busy. Like doing the podcast and the Taste of Nostalgia on top of my 40-hour work week was enough to keep me busy enough to where I can continue to get content on this channel and not overwhelm and burn myself out by doing so. I wanted to pace myself. But now that I've kind of settled into my new life and that I'm kind of getting going, I'm getting a groove of things, I feel like I can take on a series. I don't know if it's going to be a daily upload just because that takes so much work. So it might be a Monday, Wednesday, Friday kind of thing. I'm not sure yet. I'm just saying that something's probably coming. I'm just not sure what I'm playing or if I'm playing it with someone else. So there's just that. But if you have any suggestions of something you might like to see, let me know down below as always. And that's all the updates that I have. This is probably going to be a shorter podcast episode just because there isn't really a whole lot going on right now. I'm kind of in that awkward phase in content right now where not a whole lot has happened in the gaming side of things. Not too much is happening on the sports side of things. And I'm like I said in the beginning, I'm in that transition period right now of in between series. Like I just got done with the Taste of Nostalgia video and I'm kind of in pre-production for the next one. I'm not kind of in. I am in pre-production for the next one. It's just that awkward gray area that this podcast just unfortunately has to fall in. But there is, I guess, a little bit going on in the sports world in terms of March Madness, the NCAA men's basketball tournament. As of recording this podcast right now, we are in the second round of March Madness, so there isn't too many big headlines and whatnot going on. But there are just a few topics I want to touch on. I'm not going to go over every team and my thoughts on them just because this podcast would turn into like a 3-hour episode. There's just a few teams that I want to cover. I don't know if I'll cover any more of it as the tournament goes on unless something cool happens and whatnot, but there are a few things that I want to touch on. So for anybody that doesn't really know a whole lot about me, I am a big Gonzaga fan. I grew up an hour south of Spokane, Washington, so I've always been a Zag fan. My family is big into the Zags, and so the first thing I wanted to talk about was Gonzaga. Right now, they played Memphis last night, and Gonzaga did not look well. And that's the thing about Gonzaga and this whole tournament so far is they have not looked good. Gonzaga has not been playing as dominant as everybody is hyping them up to be. I say this a lot, but the problem that Gonzaga has is that they play in a shitty conference. They play in the West Coast Conference. And, I know what you're saying, oh, well, St. Mary's made it to the second round, and BYU is always giving them a run for the money. But as a conference as a whole, they're pretty lackluster. I know San Francisco made it, but they lost out to Murray State. And St. Mary's only made it to the second round. BYU didn't even make it this year. The whole conference is pretty lackluster as a whole when you compare it to a Power 5 conference, like the Big 12 or the SEC this year. Stuff like that. And because of that, Gonzaga plays very mid-tier level teams. And so when they come into the tournament and they see real teams like Memphis and upcoming Arkansas, they always get pushed around because it's like a culture shock for them. They're not used to these big level, high competitive teams. Now, I know what you're also thinking, Gonzaga played Duke and other teams this postseason that are really good programs. And to which I say, yes, they did. And they beat Texas Tech and they lost to Duke. But that's at the very beginning of the season. And then they go into West Coast Conference play, and then the talent level just drops. And throughout the season, that's what they become used to. That's what they know. Even though they played very high-level programs early in the season, it still levels off for them because they play the shitty West Coast Conference teams in their division. And so when they come into March, they're not used to that high level of competitiveness anymore. And that is what has always gotten Gonzaga in the national tournament, is just that culture shock they experience. And it's showing right now in this year's bracket. I wouldn't call Georgia State a power school or anything of the sort, but Gonzaga struggled hard in that game. The scoreboard says they won by 21, but that game was not as dominant. Gonzaga struggled hard in the first half of that game, and they looked bad. And it's same for Memphis. Nobody really gave Memphis a shot in that game, but Memphis came out and took Gonzaga and just ran with him the whole game until the very end. But yeah, Memphis almost got that win, and Gonzaga, it's like Gonzaga last year against UCLA. They played a bunch of scrub teams, then when they got to UCLA just was so hot, they just punched Gonzaga right in the mouth, and if it wasn't for a buzzer beater at the very end to win it for Gonzaga, they probably would have lost. Now, don't get me wrong, I am rooting for Gonzaga. I really hope they can finally get Coach Few a national championship after coming so close year after year. But honestly, if Gonzaga chokes and loses University of Kentucky style at some point in this tournament, whether it's against Arkansas or against Texas Tech or Duke, whoever they might see after Arkansas, it honestly wouldn't surprise me, just because as a Gonzaga fan, we're just used to it. I'm used to it over the years. It always happens. Or they get to the national title game and they just get their ass kicked. Like last year against Baylor, or in 2017, I believe it was, against North Carolina. Gonzaga just has yet to get over that final hump. And it's really annoying. But at the same time, it's just happened so much that it's just become self-fulfilling prophecy. But that's where I stand with the Zags. I hope they pull it through. But also with Gonzaga, they are being hard carried by Drew Timme, hard carried. And Andrew Nembhard is also playing really well. But also surprisingly is that Chet Holmgren has not been playing well at all. He has not looked very good. And I've said this to people for a while now. I haven't really talked about Gonzaga a whole lot on the podcast or at all. I think this is actually my first time talking about Gonzaga. But Chet Holmgren is just getting pushed around in the paint. Like, he is so thin that his height kind of evens out with his size. Like, yes, he's really tall, but he's also really thin, so it kind of evens out the pro and con. And he's just not doing a whole lot this tournament. And I'd imagine that's hurting his draft stock a little bit for the NBA, because when he was being recruited, everybody was like, oh yeah, he's going to be the first overall pick in the draft. He's hands down the best player in the high school recruiting class. He's going to be this force to be reckoned with because he's a post who can also shoot the three, and he has some guard skills with handling the ball. And here he comes into the tournament, and he's just not doing a whole lot. And it's really underwhelming. And I'm sure that's hurting his draft stock just because, well, NBA teams, I guess, let me just state for the record that I don't really watch the NBA. I don't really like the NBA. But just knowing that it's a pro league, I imagine they're scouting players who can compete in these high-intensity, high-level competitions, because that's what they want to see carry over when NBA teams are pushing for championships. Like, it's the same way in NCAA football. Like, for the NFL, like if a football player goes into the Natty playoffs and they just completely shit themselves, like, that's not going to look good for them to NFL teams, because they think, oh, this guy gets into a high-pressure, high-intensity game and he just completely shits the bed. We don't want that because we're trying to make playoff pushes in the NFL, you know? I assume it's kind of the same thing with Chet and his draft stock, but he's just not been playing well. And it's really unfortunate. I hope he turns it up. But right now, the only reason Gonzaga is even in the Sweet 16 right now is because of Drew Timme, who is absolutely popping off for Gonzaga. Like, he is carrying us right now. Like, but I know against Memphis, Andrew Nembhard and Rasir Bolton also had really good games against Memphis, but those three can't do it all. Like, especially Timme. Like, Timme hard carrying us. He can't do it all. Like, that's just not how you win in the NCAA tournament. You can't have one guy do it all. There's just too much talent. And I keep wondering, like, is Gonzaga even going to be able to carry this to a national championship? Like, if Gonzaga wants to win a national championship, they have to come together as a team and play better. Because right now, 2-3 guys doing all the work is not going to cut it, especially if they have to get through teams like North Carolina in the Final Four if they make it that far, or Duke, or Texas Tech, a defensive team like Texas Tech. Oh, God, Gonzaga better hope they don't have to play Texas Tech at any point in the Elite Eight if they make it that far. Because, yeah. I know Gonzaga beat Texas Tech earlier in the season, but that's early season. Like, that's preseason. These are you're a different team at that point. Yeah, that's all I have on Gonzaga. I might start covering Gonzaga basketball more. I don't know. Let me know what you think down below. But against Arkansas, I don't know. It really depends on who comes out to play. And I know that's such a cheap answer, but it is. Like, in March Madness, every team comes out with their best punch. And right now, Gonzaga isn't really hitting that hard, or as hard as everybody's hyped them up to be. And it's, again, just because they play in the West Coast Conference, of course you look dominant in the West Coast Conference when you have top prospects and shitty competition against you to make you look better. Like, of course, I would look like a pro basketball player if all my film was being based around me beating the shit out of fucking third graders in a basketball game. Like, of course I would look dominant. And of course Gonzaga looks dominant. They play in the West Coast Conference. I love my Zags. Well, that's just a fact. The West Coast Conference makes us look good, and people overhype us, even though we don't really see that much high-level competition in the season, unless, of course, teams like BYU and St. Mary's pop off. But those two teams are not super fantastic either. Like, the West Coast Conference isn't that good of a conference in basketball. But yeah, the other team I wanted to talk about is St. Peter's, which has just kind of become America's team over the last week, which is amazing because they fucking come in as the 15th seed and they beat Kentucky. And then they go and immediately beat Murray State later to advance to the Sweet 16, like a 15 seed in the Sweet 16. Like that is what makes that's what makes the NCAA tournament so much fun to watch and follow. Is just these little upset teams that go on this fucking Cinderella story type journey, like Loyola did, or UCLA did also last year, where UCLA was a first four team and they went to the Final Four. I think it was the Final Four, but either way, it was unbelievable to watch, even though I'm not a big UCLA fan. But these little teams that nobody gets a shot for come in and beat a blue blood program like Kentucky. It just makes the tournament that much more fun. And it makes like every team know like, oh, we're not safe. Like if we underestimate any team, they're going to just embarrass us. And I hope St. Peter's makes it all the way, fucking St. Mary's to the moon. Let's fucking go. I got my jersey ordered right now. Let's fucking go St. Peter's. Let's get it done. But yeah, they just became America's team, it seems like. And I love it. I love these fucking low seed teams coming in and just saying like, hey, you shouldn't sleep on us just because we're a 15 seed in a conference you've never heard of. Like, respect us, bitch. And they will play either Texas or Purdue. Most likely Purdue, whoever wins that game. But yeah, St. Peter's to the moon. Let's fucking go. The last team that I wanted to talk about with the NCAA tournament right now is Michigan. When the seedings were drawn and the bracket was made, everybody was like, why the hell is Michigan in here? Like, Michigan has been a very just mediocre to bad team all season. Like, they've struggled hard everywhere they go. They've lost embarrassing games, and yet they somehow make it in to March Madness, and people are like, why? And how did they get the 11 seed? And it's obvious, like, it's NCAA bias in a way to keep big name programs in the tournament for the sake of viewers, which I guess it's kind of true, but at the same time, last year we didn't have North Carolina or Duke, two of the bluest bloods of blue bloods programs that missed the tournament. But that's just because they were so bad that people would probably riot if those two were put in. But for Michigan, like, Michigan definitely should not have been in the tournament. They didn't play well to earn it, and especially with teams that kind of got shafted out and forced to go into NIT or something, or off-season, whatever, that probably should have been in the tournament. They get kicked out for Michigan. But oddly enough, Michigan just started winning. Now, I know that their trip to the Sweet 16 hasn't been like the toughest. Like, they had Colorado State, which isn't too much to write home about. Like, and they even struggled against Colorado State for most of that game. But then they play Tennessee, where I guess Tennessee has done decent over the season, but Tennessee has definitely been overhyped. Like, Tennessee has not been as good as people are hyping them up to be or claim that they were. Because I know a lot of Tennessee fans were upset about the 3 seed, like they thought they should have been higher. I thought 3 seed was too high for Tennessee personally, but whatever, and they lose to Michigan anyway. So somehow Michigan, the team that people think, and myself included, shouldn't have been in the tournament to begin with, are now a Sweet 16 team, and they will play either Ohio State and Villanova for the Elite Eight. So that's going to be really interesting to see. And I think that if Michigan makes it to the Elite Eight, they can officially say, yeah, no, we definitely were meant to be here. Now, I know you can say that for a team if they even win one game, like, you can use that to justify their tournament appearance. But it doesn't really do it for me in Michigan's case, just because of who they played, like Colorado State and Tennessee. Like, Tennessee was kind of impressive, but Colorado State not that much. It really hasn't done much to convince me that Michigan State really belongs. But if Michigan State makes it to the Elite Eight, I think everybody can say without a doubt that they belong. Like, they were meant to be here. Like, all right, well played. You came in and you performed past expectations. Kind of like St. Peter's, but St. Peter's actually had monumental wins against Kentucky. Like, we have to give them that. Like, St. Peter's making it to the Sweet 16 is a million times more impressive than Michigan. But Michigan making it to the Sweet 16, I would just call luck, just based on who they've played and how well their opponents have played. And that's really it. That's all I really have right now for the March Madness tournament. I will also say, though, I correctly predicted North Carolina beating Baylor to get to the Sweet 16, and a lot of people are apparently losing their brackets to that if they didn't already before from the fucking upset games. But I called North Carolina beating Baylor in the second round. I called it. North Carolina ended the regular season playing really fucking good basketball, and they played really good, I thought, in the ACC tournament. And Baylor has just been so beat up to injuries, and they lost the first round of the Big 12 tournament. And yeah, I just thought that was an easy pick, but apparently a lot of people are really like upset that their brackets were busted yet again because they thought Baylor was going all the way. Like, if you thought Baylor was going all the way, you definitely didn't follow that team very much. Like, I didn't follow Baylor a whole lot, but I knew they were injured to shit and they were struggling late in the season. So, yeah, I guess people just pick based on the names, which is probably why people have, like, Duke going to the finals, or why people might have Kansas going to the finals, just because they're like, ooh, Kansas, big name program. They good. They always good. They go to finals. I don't know why I said it like that. But that's all I got for March Madness. And I think that's all I really have in general. Yeah, this is definitely a shorter podcast. But, yeah, really not a whole lot going on. I will keep you posted on the development of Taste of Nostalgia. Hopefully next weekend, it will start being filmed. I can start just diving into that game and get the content I need for it. And that's another thing. Like, because it doesn't have a set story, I don't really know how long to film. Because I can easily record 40 minutes of gameplay for a video, but that assumes I have to use all 40 minutes for that video, even assuming it's going to be a 40-minute video. So I'm probably going to record a lot more content for that video just so I can ensure that I have enough to make a video out of, because I write the script as I go. And one problem that I kind of had with the Pokemon Silver Taste of Nostalgia video is that I didn't have a lot of content at times, so I was forced to use content in some places, not the whole thing, that I wasn't expecting to use. Content that I thought is just kind of filler. But that's my bad. I'm still learning about all this, but I'm really happy with how well the series is turning out. I just wish that YouTube would show it a little love and show it to more than 25 people in a week. But I mean, it's whatever. I don't have too much expectations, but I just wish, it was viewed a little more by people and shown by YouTube just for how much work I put into it and how happy I am about it. But that's not how the system works, and that's okay. That's okay. But yeah, that's all I got this week. Keep you guys posted next week. Hopefully I'll have a guest on next week. It's just an odd time of the year for everybody, so I couldn't really get anybody on this week. There are a lot of other podcast topics that I want to cover that would be better covered with a guest, I should say, or recorded in a longer series, which I kind of teased in a previous podcast episode. But yeah, stay tuned for all that. And yeah, I don't think I have anything else. Yeah, thank you everybody for watching, and I will see you all next Sunday, hopefully, unless I'm dead. And yeah, go Zags.